Bula Vinaka, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susanna Swiswiki. Coming up.
Most of the problems we hear are problems caused by our workers in Australia.
Fiji Prime Minister unhappy with some seasonal workers. Also, rugby league fans buzzing over the Pacific Championship teams. And Pacific climate advocates recognised on the world stage. Fiji's Prime Minister says the behaviour of some Fijian workers participating in seasonal employment has been embarrassing. The Prime Minister's comment has been criticised by one Fiji charity that says it undermines the dignity of many workers forced to go overseas to support their families. Caleb Fotheringham has more.
Fiji's Prime Minister Sitiveni Rabuka says most problems associated with the schemes originate from Fijian workers, not from poor treatment of employers.
For me, as Prime Minister, it has been embarrassing. Most of the problems we hear are problems caused by our workers in Australia, not by the employers or not by the Australian government. And that is something that we have to sort out here before they are deployed.
Mr Rabuka made the comment during a press conference with Australia's Deputy Prime Minister, Richard Marles. Concern for workers' well-being has been long-standing for both the Pacific Australia Labour Mobility Scheme and New Zealand's recognised seasonal employment scheme. But Fiji's Prime Minister says most workers have positive experiences, which is the case for some of his own family members.
They have been very responsible to their families here as well as their employers in Australia. And 3 of them have been to Fiji on home leave. And they speak glowingly of their employers and their neighbourhood.
Executive Director of Fiji Council of Social Services, Vani Vatanasinghe, says she was disappointed by her Prime Minister's comment.
Just characterising workers, it undermines their dignity, and it's clear that the PM is not cognizant of other factors that may be occurring and that the workers are having to deal with.
She says incidences of misbehaviour is due to a lack of preparation of workers in Fiji before they're sent abroad.
Preparation, orientation is supposed to happen in country. So if he's pointing out that he's embarrassed, then I think the gap then lies in the work that we do in country.
Meanwhile, Deputy Prime Minister Marles says his government is listening to feedback from Fijians who have taken part in the Pacific Australia Labour Mobility Scheme.
And that means both in terms of the experiences that people are having, what economic wealth they're able to bring home, but also making sure that the numbers of people coming are appropriate in the context of the domestic economy here in Fiji.
Richard Marles says Australia is constantly fine-tuning the scheme.
RNZ Pacific reporter Caleb Fotheringham with that report. It's time for our weekly socials wrap with RNZ Pacific digital journalist Coco Lance. Talofa, Coco.
Talofa, Sana.
Tell us about what's going off online, Coco.
Alright, so story number 1 is the kind of news that kind of just hits you right in the feels and makes you want to stand up and do something and make a difference yourself. So it's got all types of people talking all over socials this week. A group of law students, just 27 of them from the University of the South Pacific in Vanuatu, just won an extremely respected international award, which is the Right Livelihood Award, also dubbed the Alternative Nobel Prize. And the group in question is the Pacific Islands Students Fighting Climate Change, otherwise known as PISFCC. And honestly, their story is wild in the best way. Back in 2019, they were saying, you know what, if no one's listening to us about climate change, let's take it to the top. Which they did, literally. So they pushed their case all the way to the International Court of Justice, which is the highest legal body in the world. And in July, the court actually issued an advisory opinion saying that states have legal obligations to act on climate change. It's not binding, but it does carry a lot of weight.
Yeah, it's really interesting at the moment as we've got leaders questioning climate change and efforts to address it. You have Pacific leaders who see firsthand the effects of climate change, but then there's New Zealand's Winston Peters who says the Paris Climate Accord doesn't hold the world's biggest emitters to account. And then you have the US President Donald Trump, who also went to the UN and had this to say.
It's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. Climate change, no matter what happens, you're involved in that.
Yes, this wasn't a great moment for climate change. But anyway, the Right to Livelihood Award Prize Committee praised the students for, quote, carrying the call for climate justice to the world's highest court, turning survival into a matter of rights and climate action into a legal responsibility.
Yeah, big congrats to these students. Also just want to acknowledge other current Pacific leaders in this climate space, such as Brianna Fruin and Moimoana Schwenke, and I hope they all inspire the next generation to fight for their island nations that are up against rising sea levels. We'll also hear from a member of the group, Vishal Prasad, later on the show. I spoke to him about the award and the work he's doing.
Okay, story number 2. Now, this one has been getting a huge response online, and all for good reason, and we are talking major career goals here.
Yes, a big whaamalo to Tiana Epati, who's just been appointed King's Counsel, which, if you're not in the legal world, it's basically the legal equivalent of getting knighted. Only about 370 lawyers in all of Aotearoa have ever been given this title, right, Coco?
Yes, and what makes Tiana's story even more special is that this is only one milestone in an extremely impressive legal career, which all started in Samoa. So she grew up there before moving to Aotearoa when she was 10, and says she was inspired by watching her dad, who was a lawyer also, help his community back home.
I just say to people, you know, it's perfectly natural to feel afraid, but feel it anyway and just do it. You know, just have the courage to push a little bit, because you never know.
And speaking of her dad, Aeao Semi Epati, he's the first Pacific judge in New Zealand, so this legal excellence definitely runs in the family. And you know, if you're out there thinking you don't belong, Tiana says, feel the fear and do it anyway. And if you grew up in a Samoan household, you most likely would have heard similar sayings from your parents. Awale pala ai, don't be scared. So for Tiana to say that, it sounds very Samoan coded.
It sure does. Okay, for our final story today, get your flags ready, because it's that time again. The Pacific Championships are back, and the squad announcements have got social media absolutely on fire.
Oh, for sure. Mate Maatonga, Toa Samoa and the Kiwis have all dropped their lineups the past week, and fans are loving the star power. I'm excited too, by the way.
I'm excited too. So let's start with Aotearoa. The Kiwis are bringing in Kieran Foran, who's making a return for one last ride after announcing his NRL retirement. And captain James Fisher-Harris is back leading the side, with a few big names returning from injury. Think Nelson Asofa-Solomona, Moses Leota. Basically, the boys are back.
But Mate Maatonga, they have a stacked team too. I mean, star names in the men's squad. We've got Jason Taumalolo, one of the initial group of players who opted to play for his country of origin in 2017, and strongman Adam Funua Blake.
But let's be real, one thing that has fans buzzing is Payne Haas, who is now officially playing for Samoa. This is a massive switch from the Kangaroos, and it's had Pacific fans buzzing since he pledged his allegiance to Samoa back in August.
There was a moment when I played for Australia when we versed Samoa in Te Anau, and I think the anthems were playing, and my mind started racing back. Lots of memories with my mum, and making us sing the national anthem of Samoa a lot in the back of the car. And
I mean, who can forget Toa Samoa in the Rugby League World Cup 3 years ago? The team want to keep that momentum, so despite star players such as Stephen Crichton, Spencer Leniu unable to put on the blue jersey, there's Jeremiah Nanai, Brian To'o, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, Jerome Luai in the mix. I mean, come on now, Toa Samoa ain't mucking around with this lineup.
Of course, the Pacific Championship isn't just about the game. The sport itself, year in, year out, is about the identity and the pride of repping your nation. And it's just as important for the players and for those fans.
Absolutely. And yeah, like you say, it's more than just a game. So to all our listeners out there, keep an eye out as RNZ Pacific will be amongst the fanfare, capturing the atmosphere very soon. And on that note, we're going to end our socials tala noa. Vinaka waka level Coco, that's Coco Lance, our social media journalist on Pacific Waves, chatting all things social.
Naka.
Pacific climate change advocates say the region's success in highlighting its plight on the world stage shows anything is possible. Vishal Prasad is part of a group of former university students who successfully took their campaign for climate accountability to the world's top court. Now, the group's being recognised through the 2025 Right Livelihood Award, often referred to as the Alternative Nobel Peace Prize. I spoke to Vishal about the award and the work he's doing.
Thank you, Susanna. No, I think it's a huge achievement for us. We are absolutely delighted to be receiving the Right Livelihood Award and to be part of the excellent lineup of laureates who have been champions for justice throughout the past few years. And I think it's a huge honor for us as young people from the Pacific, but also for the region and also for the recognition on the work of the ICJ Advisory Panel. So very, very delighted to be receiving the award.
You know, since the ICJ ruling, has there been more interest from Pacific youth to join your organisation?
Well, there's definitely been a lot more interest, certainly from young people, but also from the civil society movement, both regionally and globally, on exploring and seeing how the advisory opinion can be taken forward in different aspects in their work, etc. We're right now in Vanuatu, where I'm calling from, and we've just had a 3-week exhibition taking people, young people, especially in Vanuatu, through a journey of the ICJ campaign. And there's been a lot of interest from young people really asking about how they can support, how they can be a part of this movement. And so I think there's been a renewed interest within communities in the Pacific and civil society on the ICJ. The task now is how do we collectively move as a movement in implementing the advisory opinion that we've received from the ICJ. Because
there's been a renewed interest in the climate change movement, would you say that we're making progress in addressing the climate crisis?
Well, the advisory opinion has provided us a strong pathway in taking the work forward. I think a lot still needs to be done in terms of moving towards climate justice. I think that has been the key goal of the ICJ advisory opinion, and to seek real climate justice for communities who have faced the impacts of climate change without doing anything to cause the problem. And so with this new interest, what we're trying to do is how can we mobilize people who are able to work in different areas, different spaces, within academia, within negotiations and multilateral spaces, as a diplomat, or wherever you may be. How can we all come together to utilize the opinion to help move the issue of climate justice forward and address climate change? And so a lot needs to be done really within the COP spaces. It's going to be very interesting to see how COP responds to the ICJ's advisory opinion in Belém in Brazil later this year. And then along with other multilateral processes, including human rights, including those on the environment, etc. And so a lot still needs to be done. But right now it's this strategy phase we're in. We're trying to build movements and solidarity to now really chart the way forward in pushing for greater climate justice and action.
Speaking of COP and the UN, what did you think of US President Donald Trump's comments, his claim that climate change is a con job?
Well, it's very unfortunate to really hear these comments coming from the US, comments that are completely misplaced and disconnected from the reality the world faces. I mean, this is we're talking about the problem of climate change that essentially the whole world recognizes. More than 80% of the world in a recent survey suggested or spoke about that they supported more strong action on climate change. We have Pacific Island countries that are facing the impacts of climate change day in and day out, and to make comments such as this is essentially rubbishing the realities and the lived experiences of people in the Pacific and around the world, those who are facing some of the most severe consequences. So I think it's very misplaced and really disconnected from reality for the U.S. to be making these claims and assertions. And also they're not based on science, I must add. The science is not on his side and is not suggesting anything. So there is no basis for any of his arguments, any of his claims that climate change is a hoax or a con job. And so I really don't understand the reasons for why he's putting this through.
Just coming back to the Pacific Island Students Fighting Climate Change organisation. Is it the same students who started the campaign in 2019?
Well, there were 27 students in 2019 that began this campaign, and a few of them are still with the organization in different capacities, serving as part of our executive committee, etc., and some continuing as members, but others have moved on to work within their national governments, regional organizations, etc., to support the work regionally. And so there are some members that are still here, but we've had new members, new faces joining the movement and the campaign as well.
Obviously, the members, they come from all parts of the region, right?
Yes.
So how do you make the time to continue this advocacy work?
Well, we're working full time. So there's a small team within the organization that's working full time as a staff of the organization to kind of carry this work forward in a dedicated capacity. And I think that allows us to kind of ensure we're in constant communication with our members. We're working on strategies and its implementation, etc., more concerted in a more coherent manner, and really building power within movements from different countries, civil society organizations rather, from different countries, to really help push the work forward.
My last question for you is, what's next for PIS FCC? I know you've mentioned COP and, you're still doing the climate change justice movement.
Well, I think what we've seen with the ICJ Advisory Opinion campaign is that there is immense potential in grassroots activism and mobilization to kind of shift these massive systems that may not seem possible to move or realize transformational change, but I think the Advisory Opinion campaign shows that it's possible. And one of the things that we want to continue as PISFCC is how can we continue serving as a vehicle to help provide young people this platform to continue similar advocacy efforts, similar work in trying to shift systems that have not been working for us, systems that have largely been systems of oppression to now become systems of change. And so young people have that potential and that power, and what we hope PISFCC can be is a vehicle that can help to continue channel these interests, these efforts and desires of young Pacific people to carry on the climate justice fight.
That was Vishal Prasad from the Pacific Island Students Fighting Climate Change Collective. That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā, sui fua.